What is up YouTube, I'm Royal, I'm rank 1 Wild Rift, and today I'm gonna be making a tier list of all the items in Wild Rift for patch 5.0. So I originally made this video a few days ago, and the whole video was pretty much, oh my god, the new items are so bad, Heartsteel and Titanic Hydra are so bad, so underwhelming. Sojourn is so bad, so underwhelming. However, Riot came in clutch with the hotfixes and buffed the items majorly. So now the items are actually really good. So we're gonna start off with the tank items. As my god tier item, I have Twin Guard. If you guys watch any of my videos, every time I play a Bruiser or a tank, Twin Guard is always in my build. The stats that it gives you are just way too high for the gold you spend. It gives way too good stats. Obviously, it's not an item that you want to get first or second, but as the third, fourth, or fifth item, Twin Guard is absolutely insane. In my S tier, I have the rest of the really good tank items. Heartsteel and Titanic Hydra are a great combination. Sunfire Cape is indirectly buffed because of Heartsteel. If your champion doesn't utilize the Titanic Hydra Heartsteel combo, you can instead do the Heartsteel Sunfire Cape combo, since Sunfire Cape does more damage the more HP you have. Iceborne Gauntlet and Thornmail are really cost effective and very good items. Then my A tier, we have the Spirit Visage as a magic resist item and Randuin's as the armor item, both really good. Mantle is pretty decent after the changes. And then B, C, and D tier are the items that are just not very good or they're very niche and you only get them in specific situations. Frozen Heart, you've seen me build a lot, but I usually only build it when the enemies have a lot of attack speed. Moving on to ADC items. So this is crit items, and then I'll talk about the rest of the AD items. In the God tier, we of course have Bloodthirster. This item just gives you all the stats you need. It gives you attack speed, a lot of AD, and it gives you a lot of healing as well. Great item. It's not even supposed to be an early game item, but it's so good that most ADCs get it as a first item. Then the S tier, we're gonna get Mortal Reminder. Mortal Reminder is a great item because it combines armor penetration with crit and with Grievous Wounds anti-heal. So it combines everything you need. It's a great third item. Usually you wanna go Bloodthirster, then attack speed item, and then Mortal Reminder. In the A tier, we have the Electrum whatever item that increases your attack range. It's a great option for hyper carry ADCs that want more range. Champions like Tristana and Caitlyn. Phantom Dancer is one of my favorite items. It just gives so much damage because of the increased attack speed on the passive and so much movement speed. I think it's a very underrated item. Essence Reaver is in A tier because it's specifically good on a few champions, but on the few champions that it's good, it can be really good. Infinity Edge is an overall great item for damage, however, it only does damage and that's it. In the B tier, we have Solari Charge Blade, which is only good on a few champions and very situational. I wouldn't recommend for most champions, however, it shines on champions like Yone, Yasuo, it's pretty good on Kai'Sa. Then Immortal Shield Bow, it's a decent item, however, it's kind of overshadowed by Bloodthirster right now. There aren't that many opportunities, and there aren't that many times where Immortal Shield Bow is gonna be better than Bloodthirster, right? Stormrazor is actually a decent item, so I have in B tier, and C tier I have two items that I think are pretty much useless. Navori Quick Blades is only good on very specific champions like Yone, like Lucian, and I think that's it. Maybe Xayah, but I wouldn't recommend it. And Collector, I just think Collector is a pretty bad item. The stats that it gives you are mid. There's just always better items that you can get instead of Collector for most situations. It's rare that Collector is going to be a good item, especially now with the meta being more tanky. Champions are more tanky, and that makes Collector fall off pretty hard. I know a lot of you guys are confused because, oh, Collector does true damage, so it's good versus tanks. No, Collector gives lethality, and lethality is not good versus tanks because it's very easily countered by armor. So don't fall for the bait of Collector. Moving on to Bruiser and Assassin items. So these are the AD items that are not crit. In the S tier, we have Trinity Force and the two broken lethality items, which is Edge of Night with the nice little shield, HP, and damage that it gives you, and of course Duskblade with the insane damage that you get from it. In A tier, Divine Sunder, there's a case to be made for it to be S tier, however it's just overshadowed by how good Trinity Force is right now. Yomu's is in A tier, which is again another really good item, however in most cases Duskblade will be better and they're very comparable. For tankier options, for against heavy AD or into the late game, you want to build Guardian Angel. It's a lot better than Death's Dance. Maw of Malmortier is actually a great item for most champions that deal AD damage. The shield you get is very impactful and completely counters most mages. Sterix Gauge is specifically good on champions that have a lot of base attack damage. So if you don't know what base attack damage is, it's the damage that you get naturally from leveling up. So at level 18, some champions have way more attack damage than other champions just naturally with no items. And Sterix Gauge gives you AD based on that base AD. So on a few champions, it's a really good item. To figure out which champion those are, you can just go on Practice Tool. If your champion has like more than 115 AD at level 18, after you just level up your champion, Sterix Gauge is probably pretty good on them. Spear of Sojourn has been kind of underwhelming and only good on a few specific champions, however it's still a decent item. Cyrilda's is a decent item if you want armor penetration, however it's not that good over Bruiser items since most Bruisers don't want to be getting armor pen. It can be good on some assassins like Zed or Kane though. Menemune is pretty good on specific champions and those champions will continue to build it, however it's only in a few niche champions. The anti-shield item Serpent's Fang is actually a great choice if the enemies have a lot of shielding. However, I see people build Serpent's Fang even when the enemies don't have that much shielding just because they have like one Lulu or something. It's definitely not worth it. It's better to go the other lethality items or start building more tanky. Black Cleaver is again a very good item that is completely overshadowed by Trinity Force since they share the same passive. Building both is inefficient, so you most of the time will be building Trinity Force over Black Cleaver. Hullbreaker is a decent split push item, and Blade of the Ruined King is pretty good on specific champions like Yone, maybe on Yasuo, some split pushers, however, it's not overall that great of an item on most champions. And then the C tier we have the 3 useless attack speed items, which is Gnasher's Tooth, Witch Ends, and Hurricane. Even the champions that these are good on, they're not very good on. Hurricane can be okay on Twitch maybe, but overall not very good. Death's Dance is not great. It's better just build one of the armor items from the tank tree to get very tanky, like a Randuin's or a Thornmail or Iceborne Gauntlet or Guardian Angel. All those items will be better. And the anti-heal Bruiser item is actually really bad. For most Bruisers, there's rarely a time where you want to go anti-heal, and if you really do, Thornmail is just a better choice. The stats that it gives are mediocre compared to what you can get from items like Trinity Force or Divine Sunder or even Black Cleaver, so I don't recommend it. If the enemy team has like a Soraka, then you can build it, but even then, a lot of the time, getting Mortal Reminder, even if you're not a crit champ, will be better than this item. Now let's move on to the AP items. In the AP items, we have 3 clear God tier items that you see built pretty much every game, and that's Luden's Echo, Oblivion Orb, and Crown. These 3 items are absolutely insane and way better than most other AP items. Luden's is by far the best first item to get, Crown is so extremely useful against so many champions, and Oblivion Orb is just the best damage AP item. In the S tier, we of course have Deathcap, which is just a mandatory late game item for AP champions. 3rd, 4th, or 5th item, Deathcap will always be there in pretty much every AP build. Then the A tier, we actually have Magi's, which is very good for most mages. I don't see it being abused as much as it could be. And we have the anti-shield item and Morello that actually give pretty good stats. So if the enemies have a lot of healing or a lot of shielding, these are your go-to items. Archangels and Rod of Ages are just completely overshadowed by how good Luden's and Crown is. So you rarely see them build. Some champions like Orianna can go Archangels, however it's not great. Lichbane is completely overshadowed by Oblivion Orb. So even on champions like Fizz, where Lichbane is pretty much mandatory, it's still not as good of an item as Oblivion Orb. Riftmaker is pretty good on some champions in specific circumstances. However, most of the time, it's a bit of a filler item that you get if it fits your champion. Rylai's and Liandry's are pretty good items on a few champions that can keep them procced all the time. So Teemo does really well with Liandry's, Zyra does very good with Rylai's, right? So these items can definitely be S tier on certain champions. Then in the C tier, we just have the items are just bad. Horizon Focus is okay, however, it's completely overshadowed by Oblivion Orb. So champions like Ori or Syndra can utilize Horizon Focus pretty well, but even in those cases, Infinity Orb is usually better. The same goes for the Spellbook item. Infinity Orb is just a better Magic Pen item, and Cosmic Drive is pretty much only good on Vladimir, I think. And the D tier, we have the Armor HP AP item. It's just a really bad item. Like, if the enemies are full AD and you're playing an AP champion, then you can build it. But even then, I would recommend just getting a normal armor item. Moving on to the support choices. So here I've lumped up tank supports and enchanter supports. For the starting items, the coin and the shield are A tier, and the sickle is a little worse, so it's B tier. The S tier items are Staff of Flowing Water and this red broken item that does so much damage as support. And of course, Zeke's is actually very strong now after the changes, where it now gives HP instead of magic resist. I feel like it's a great item on a lot of engaged champions like Leona and Nautilus. Dawn Shroud is one of my personal favorites to rush on engaged supports because the damage in the early game is absolutely absurd. It falls off later into the game, but it gives you a strong early game. Ardent is a decent choice for enchanters, and the healing item is also a decent choice for enchanters. However, they're nowhere near as good as Staff of the Flowing Water. Deadman's Plate is a decent option for roaming supports. However, what I do recommend is usually getting Dawn Shroud, Zeke's, and then building just tank items if you're playing a tank engaged support. And similar goes for enchanters. It's probably best to just build Staff of the Flowing Water. If you're championing also build Imperial Mandate, then build Imperial Mandate, and then go into the AP choices like Crown and Deathcap. It's usually not that great to bother with Ardent or Harmonic. However, if you have like a heavy attack speed ADC like a Vayne, then Ardent can actually be a decent choice. In the C tier, we have this pretty bad support item, the little shield thing. It's overall pretty useless. It gets procced very easily. I would not recommend it. It's probably better to go tank items. And D tier, we have the most useless item in the game, which is Seed Jar, that does absolutely nothing. Do not build this item. Let's move on to the boots. So in the God tier, we have the 2 tank boots. They're just absolutely insane. Getting these as a first item completely shuts down that damage. So if you're playing like top lane versus Teemo and you just don't know what to do, just rush the Merc Treads and he's not going to be doing damage anymore. If you're playing versus heavy AD, even if you're a damage champion, I still recommend going the plated steel caps. So the tank boots are by far the best, especially when the enemies have full AD or full AP. Even if I'm playing an ADC or a mage, I will still go these boots versus full AD or full AP teams. In S tier, we have the 2 good damage boots, which is the Boots of Mana, which are the best AP choice. Obviously, the ability haste boots are just not as good compared to the stats you get. So if you're playing AP champions, it's best to go these boots. If you're playing enchanters or champions that want more ability haste and rely more on their abilities and utility, then you want to go the ability haste boots. And the healing boots are always better than the armor pen and the attack speed boots, pretty much on every champion. I can see some exceptions where you want to go attack speed boots on maybe Yone or Yasuo, but even those champions usually go tank boots because they're just so good, right? So the healing boots are actually the better choice for assassins than the armor pen boots because they give 35 AD for the same cost versus 30 AD. So the difference is 5 AD and 7% healing or 10 armor pen. And if you do the math, the 5 AD and the 7% healing is just way more gold efficient. Finally, let's move on to enchants. In God tier, we're going to have Stasis and Quicksilver. These are by far the best enchants for any carry champion, but they can also be pretty good on tanks, especially Stasis. Stasis is a game-changing enchant, and it's definitely God tier. In S tier, we have the Veil, the Shield. This is the best for enchanters, best for support items, support champions. It can be game changing, right? Blocking a Zed ult or a Fizz ult, or blocking a Malphite ult, a Nautilus ult. It can be game changing. In A tier, you have your tank enchant, your Locket. That's great, supportive enchant against a lot of AoE damage, and Proto build, which can be really good on a lot of champions. Then if you're playing Soraka or Sona or a heavy healing champion, the healing enchant is actually pretty good. However, Veil is usually the better choice even for those champions. I think only Soraka really benefits from this item. However, it's still really good, just overshadowed by Veil. Teleport is pretty useless most of the time because if you're playing split push, you usually commit to the split push. You don't care so much about wasting 800 gold to be able to join your team. Meteor is pretty much only good on Camille, however it does quite a bit of damage, so it's a decent item. Glory is okay on certain champions. I like it on Garen, Darius, even though there's a case to be made that Proto Belt is better in most cases. The dash will be better than the speed up. In C tier, we just have the most useless items, like Redemption. There's never a reason to get Redemption over Locket or Veil. Whatever this item is that knocks people away. And in D tier we have this useless item that I'm pretty sure is only good on like Shen, but even then it's not that great because you want to build tanky, so you probably want to go Stone Plate. So this is my tier list. If you agree or disagree with anything, please comment down below and we can discuss it and figure it out. Thanks so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, leave a like and subscribe for more Wild Rift content.